Ginsburg was appointed by President Clinton back in 1993 and served on the nation's highest court for more than a quarter century. She died yesterday at 87 years old. But now a battle already brewing in Washington over naming her replacement. About 2 hours after news of her death broke, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell took to Twitter, vowing a vote by the full Senate on Trump's appointee. And today, President Trump backing McConnell's stance during the press conference.
We want to respect the process, and the process will move. I think it's going to move very quickly, actually. I agree with the statement put out by Mitch McConnell. So I think we're going to start the process extremely soon, and we'll have a nominee very soon.
But Democrats, including Joe Biden, say the decision should be left up to the president chosen by voters in November. They also point to 2016. That is when McConnell denied a confirmation hearing to Merrick Garland. He was former President Barack Obama's pick to fill the seat left vacant after the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. This all now adding more heat to the already high-stakes U.S. Senate races right here in Georgia. And tonight, we're hearing from those candidates now vying to potentially have a say in who will serve as the next Supreme Court justice. Chanu Her has the reaction for us.
Shortly after news of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, some lawmakers wasted no time in sparking up conversation about her replacement. Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell said in a statement Saturday night, President Trump's nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. Senator Kelly Loeffler, in a tweet, offered her prayers to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's family and also says she will support President Trump. On Fox News Saturday morning, Senator Kelly Loeffler further stressed that
we need to keep that process moving regardless of it being an election year. We need to make sure that this country has that constitutionalist on the Supreme Court. That's what I'm going to be pushing for, and so many of my colleagues.
Echoing that is Representative Doug Collins, running against Loeffler for her Senate seat.
If the president goes ahead, which we hope he will, and appoints someone shortly, this pick will be before an election. The people of America will decide what they want to do or not do about this pick and how they want to go about it.
However, Democratic Senate candidate John Ossoff cited Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish of having the next elected president pick her replacement. He says, in part, with voting already underway and at a moment such as this, we must let the people speak at the ballot box and then let the court reflect the will of the newly elected president and Senate.